While it's likely you've heard of the G7, you might not exactly know what it does, why it exists, or who exactly are the countries that comprise it. So with the G7 being hosted today in Cornwall, we thought that it might be good to explain all of that right now. By the way, we've posted this on the TLDR UK channel as the G7 meeting is being hosted in Britain. But if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you really ought to subscribe to TLDR Global. It's linked down below. Anyway, the best place to start in this video is 1973, a particularly difficult year for Western economies. This is due inadvertently to the Yom Kippur War. What had happened was a coalition of Arab nations, led by Egypt and Syria, fought Israel over their control over certain areas of the region. However, frustrated with the Western world's backing of Israel, the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries placed an oil embargo on countries which backed Israel, including the UK and US. This embargo caused an oil crisis, and thus an economic crisis. In order to try and coordinate a response, the respective finance ministers from West Germany, France, the UK and the US all met in the White House Library. This was, though, an informal meeting, and they unimaginatively adopted the name the Library Group. Over the next few years, more and more countries were added to the club. In fact, later in 1973, Japan was added, changing the name to the Group of Five. In 1975, another meeting was held, and Italy was included, making it the Group of Six. Then in 1967, Canada was invited too, hence the Group of Seven, or G7. You may be wondering why exactly these countries though. Well, because the group started informally, there wasn't any strict set of criteria. In fact, many countries were just invited because of their close relations to existing members. For example, France invited Italy, and the US invited Canada. This informality was, though, the exact point. In many international organizations, such as the UN, there are complex bureaucratic procedures. While they certainly have their place, some world leaders desired a forum whereby they could speak frankly about the issues of the day, and well, that's exactly what the G7 is designed for. Ever since 1975, the group has met every year to discuss the issues that face the nations collectively. Each year, a different country takes turns hosting it, with the host being responsible for that year's organization. So, in effect, each country gets to host every 7 years. We say in effect because the G7 hasn't always had 7 members. For a while, Russia was included too. This started in 1997, and they joined officially in 1998, on the invitation of the UK Prime Minister Tony Blair and US President Bill Clinton. Russia was then uninvited in 2014 though, due to their annexation of Crimea. Between 1998 and 2014, when Russia was invited, the group was either known as G8 or the G7+1. And speaking of additional countries, each year the host country is allowed to invite additional guest nations to contribute, with the UK choosing to invite Australia, India, South Korea and South Africa to the 2021 G7 summit in Cornwall. Anyway, what does the G7 actually do? Well, as we said, the countries discuss issues that mutually affect them, and then after the meeting, a communiqué is issued, outlining what has been agreed. In the past, agreements have been made on the HIV/AIDS pandemic, tax avoidance, and even the Paris Climate Agreement. It should come as no surprise then that the focus this year will be how to build back from the pandemic, and we'll have to wait until after the summit to see exactly what's been agreed in relation to COVID. So that's what the G7 does and some of its successes, but we should probably quickly discuss some of the criticisms. We've actually touched on one of the main criticisms already, and that's that membership is so informal. As a result, a group of rich Western nations make decisions that affect the rest of the world, with no real way of other countries applying and joining. And it's for this reason that there have been some serious protests at previous summits. In addition, criticism has previously been made that countries cannot agree on how to respond to crises. A good example of this is the divergence of opinion on how to deal with the 2008 financial crisis. The US at the time favoured growth, whereas the UK and Germany favoured being more fiscally responsible. Regardless of your thoughts though, with the G7 meeting over the next couple of days, it'll be interesting to see what plans and discussions emerge. One idea floating around is the concept of a global corporate tax, something Biden's expected to propose to the group, and something that we discussed on the TLDR US channel earlier this week. That video is linked in the description. You should also definitely subscribe to the TLDR Global channel, and that's linked down below, because if you're interested in international topics like this, then you'll love what we're covering over there. From the ongoing situation in Israel, to boycotting China's controversial 2022 Olympics, or even how countries are coping with declining populations. Check out the channel and subscribe by clicking the link in the description. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, just like all of these people, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.